Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Swamp Gas podcast. My name is Mr. S. And today I'm going to discuss my first interaction, or I guess the meeting with an extraterrestrial being. This is probably going to be the most difficult podcast episode that I will ever do, most likely. And I'm doing this in the daytime as well, the late afternoon or the late evening, early evening. So you may hear my dogs bark. Yeah. So the reason why this one is difficult is because if you've ever gone through an experience in your life, really, traumatic experience, something, it leaves an impression in your mind. And, when you think about it, it tends to bother you. It doesn't bother me. I haven't thought about it in a long time. This isn't something like I can't sleep because of or think about all the time. I don't think about it anymore, but I haven't spoken to anybody about this in a really long time. Initially, I did talk about it a little bit to a few of my friends, but when you do, when you speak with somebody about something like this, you realize really quickly that it's not something that you want to speak about because everybody has their preconceived notions about what is, and this isn't something that people just think it's, something that they accept very easily. So, anyways, before I go into that, I'm going to back up a little bit. I know I might have mentioned this previously about how I got to the initial experience. So, but I want to make sure that, we're up to speed on this in case you didn't listen to it. I made a really successful business, and I'm going to do this really quickly, just so you know. And that business was doing extremely well. I was making a large amount of money, and I started to question the point of my life. Really, it was a great position to be in, but you go through, or at least I went through this stage of it's like, I worked really hard for a really long time. I started making a lot of money, and I started buying all of the things that I wanted. But that quickly wore off because I realized that I had bought everything that I wanted, and I just didn't want anything else. I just didn't need it. I was always looking for an excuse to buy something else. I just didn't need it. I know some people, they just, buy something better than what they have. I've got a Porsche and now I want a Ferrari. And I've got a Ferrari, I want a Bentley, or, moving up and up. And then, I need a gold plated toilet bowl. I just never had that thing in me where I needed to have the best of the best all the time and then have all this stuff. I just really wanted things that I wanted, which is pretty basic. And you realize really quickly that it doesn't cost as much as you think it does, So I sort of ran out of things to buy. And then I started, just continuing to work, continuing to make money, making more money, saving money, and also I'm single. I pretty much by myself. And it's just, there was nothing else. I felt that there was nothing left for me to not do, but purchase. And that's an interesting place because most people, I would think, want to get to that point. But then what happens after that point? That's the thing. And I think a lot of people, especially in the American culture or the Western culture, it's just upgrading, right? I got that, now I got to get a better version of it. That just didn't, that's just not my style. So having what I wanted, everything that I needed, and being bored, I started looking for a passion project, you know, chasing tornadoes to et cetera, et cetera. And then I decided upon the extraterrestrial phenomenon and, you know, watching the stars and, you know, thinking about the universe and all of those things. And, you know, I realized that light pollution was a really big issue. And I decided, I was thinking about where am I going to go, because I could now have a remote business. I could go anywhere I want to in the world, and I have the money to do it. So it's like, yay. And so I started thinking about it, and, you know, like, how am I going to study the extraterrestrial phenomenon? I had been doing a lot of research before that, and I'm ashamed to say, but there was a moment that kind of changed my direction, is when I was watching something. I'm not going to say what, but it tricked me. And oh, it was so good. I fell for it. I mean, not for a long time, for like maybe like 30 minutes. And I messaged my friend and I'm like, "Oh my God, have you seen this?" And then, you know, my rational mind, you know, I guess woke up and it's like, you should probably do some research on that first. But it got me, and I did some research and I was like, "Oh, you tricked me." But it bothered me so much. It bothered me so much because I'm a super skeptical person, man. I don't believe in stuff. Like, before doing heavy research, I've got part scientific mind and part open mind to possibilities that are not necessarily scientifically proven. But this one got me, and it bothered me for a while. It bothered me to the point where I was thinking, you know what? It's not going to happen again. If I'm going to really genuinely research this topic, I want to see things for myself. So I started doing research on things that I could buy and what I could do and how I could do it. And I realized that light pollution was a serious issue. It's such a big problem, especially if you're trying to see small objects. So I decided to move. And I mentioned it before, so I'm just going to say it, but I moved to Hawaii. I'm not going to say which island, but I moved to one of the islands in Hawaii. And where I moved was extremely remote. Not incredibly far away from people, but it was a very, very private location, and it's very dark because if you have seen any pictures of Hawaii or know anything about it, you have these giant lava flows. So they're the mountains, right? And it looks like someone ran their hand down a muddy sculpture, sort of like that movie from back in the day, Close Encounters of a Third Kind. The landscape is like that. And this location that I decided to move to was sort of carved into the side, the bottom of the mountain at the beach, and unbelievably beautiful. It still, to this day, I haven't been, and I know there are other places that are probably equally good, but I've never seen anything as beautiful as this. Most incredible location to move to, and move to by yourself. And yeah, so it's on the beach, sort of like adjacent to the mountain. And I did that for a reason, specifically for a reason, and that was because I wanted not just peace and quiet, but I really wanted that dark night sky. If you haven't experienced it because you live in a city or you live outside a city but still has light pollution, you've never been into the desert in the middle of nowhere where there's no light, you are absolutely missing one of the most incredible things that you would probably ever see, and that is the galaxy. It's unbelievable. It's such an amazing thing. And then to just lay there on the beach and to literally watch the Earth spin and the stars go through the sky. It's an incredible experience. But I moved there because I wanted to watch. I wanted to have a mostly unfiltered, unpolluted view of the night sky in like a panoramic almost way. And so that's what I got, or that's what I had. And I purchased an incredible telescope, and I purchased a really expensive military grade night vision monocular that was connected to the telescope and connected to my laptop. And I was able to record after a little bit. I tried to do it at first by myself, and then I was like, oh man, this is hard. And then I started recording and watching at the same time, and sometimes leaving it and then watching the film over. So this was literally almost most of the day in the daytime and most of the night, in the evening or at night. So I'm pretty invested in it, and financially extremely invested. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in less than a year and a half. I said I had the money. Looking at that time when I stopped, I looked back and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I just wasted my time and money. But, and I might have to stop this in a minute because I've got some food arriving, and I don't know how long I want to talk, but if I have to stop this, I'll start up again after, and maybe later, so it might sound a little bit different. But so I sat there for over a year watching the night sky, recording, going back over the film or the recording, and you see a lot of things. You absolutely do. There's tons of things. There's meteors, meteorites, space debris, satellites, International Space Station, random little things, but nothing that I couldn't easily explain. So I sat there for a long time watching, and I literally didn't see anything that I would say is an extraterrestrial. We're looking for those things like it did a sharp right turn, and that's impossible. I didn't see anything like that. For a really long time, and I just got sick of it. I mean, I didn't. I will say I got sick of it. I got sick of spending a ton of money on the place that I was living because that was a lot of the expense. But I started to feel like, this just isn't real. Or maybe I'm in the wrong location. Initially I was thinking of where I was going to move. Should I move to Arizona near Area 51? I could move into the desert. I could, go to Mexico or somewhere around there. And I don't know about you, but moving into the desert alone to look at or look for UFOs sort of doesn't sound appealing to me, or it didn't sound appealing to me. But moving to an island in the South Pacific and living on the beach looking for UFOs, okay, this sounds a little bit more fun. So I opted for the latter. I moved to an island in Hawaii, which was freaking amazing, by the way. Absolutely loved it. It's a beautiful place. It's not a place that you're going to go out and have a lot of friends, for most of us. Not going to discuss any of that stuff, but it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. I mean, man. And the air quality and the weather. Oh, I miss the weather. Yeah. It's like literally year round. The perfect weather all the time. And it rains about once a day for a little while, like short time. So it's always perfect. But I basically gave up. And this is going to be the part that I don't really like discussing for the reasons that are probably pretty obvious. It's uncomfortable, and it causes, and I've seen it, people talk about it. I tried to. People are really skeptical, and then, people go to like your crazy place, which again, like if you listen to anything that I had mentioned before, this is one of the reasons why people don't really talk about this, even though they want to. But so I quit. Basically, I was quitting, and I was looking. I was thinking about moving back to the mainland, and I was thinking about where to go. And normally, what I would do in the daytime is I go to a cafe, and I have my laptop, and I sit down there because it's beautiful, and it's just such. It's not hot. You're not sweating. It's always just like, just amazing. So I go to the cafe all the time. Same one, almost always the same one, which wasn't too far from where I lived. And I was looking for the place that I was going to go. Was I going to go back to the city that I came from, or was I going to go to a new one and maybe do the other things like chase tornadoes or whatever I was planning before? And I'm sitting there, and I noticed that there's a guy in front of me to the right, and he's sitting at a table. And usually people are by themselves. When they're by themselves, they're looking out at the ocean. But this guy was kind of turned in an angle looking at me. I'm not a paranoid person, so I just saw him, and he seemed like he was looking at me. So I sat there for a while, and you get that feeling where it's sort of like a burning sensation, where it's like when someone's looking at you from when they're behind you, you get like the burning in the back of my head or something like that. It was like that. Like I kept kind of glancing up, and I was like thinking, is this guy looking at me, or and I don't know. And to be completely fair, he looked like a nice guy, right? But still, you got some dude who's looking at you, and there are really nobody at this cafe at this time. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to work on my laptop, and I'm kind of like, glancing. I'm like, what the hell is going on? This is a little strange. And it starts to rain. And if you've ever been to Hawaii, and when I said it rains once a day, it rains. And then it rains pretty hard, but it's like a cloud comes over, dumps water, goes away. But this guy's sitting out more towards the beach on just a single table. And I'm sitting, a little bit closer, and I have got a big umbrella. And he gets up as it starts to rain, and he comes over, and he's like, "Hey, can I sit here under your umbrella?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, no problem." Wasn't thinking anything, And it starts raining, and he's looking at me, and he's smiling, like, and I'm like, okay. This guy is probably a little off or something like that, And I was like, what's up? And he's like, so why are you in Hawaii? And so you're like, what are you doing here? Because usually, like, I'm a younger person at the time, right? And younger people don't naturally go to Hawaii unless they're doing something, like they have a job at a company, because it's expensive. So, it's usually the question, right? So it's like, why are you here? Why are you here? If you're older, then, they're probably retired and they're living their dream on an island. But so he asked me, he's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I'm doing astrophotography. And he says, looking for aliens. And it caught me off guard, right? And I was being slightly sarcastic, but that is what I was doing. And I said, yeah. He's like, yeah, I did that. And my first thought was, you did astrophotography? So I was like, did what? Astrophotography? And he says, no, looking for aliens. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I know how it worked out for me. So my response was, oh yeah, how'd that work out for you? And he says, well, it depends on what you mean by aliens. I thought about it for a minute, and I try to I was like, okay, this guy might be kind of strange or something. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. And so I'm like, yeah, okay. And he said, or he asked me, What if I told you I could introduce you to an extraterrestrial being? And I laughed and I was like, oh, yeah? How does that work? And he asked me, well, let me ask you a question. If you met an extraterrestrial being, what would you do? And I replied, I would have a lot of questions. I mean, honestly, who wouldn't, right? And then he asked, okay, so would you like to meet one? And I was like, of course, I'd love to meet one. Who wouldn't? I think that's for a lot of people who, in the world or study this thing, they want to meet one. Who wouldn't? And he looks at me and he's like, okay, so when would you like to meet one? And so at this point I started thinking like, this guy is being serious. I don't know if he was being serious. Like, I mean, he seemed like he was being serious. So he's like, so when would you like to meet one? And I said, whenever. And so he says, how about tomorrow? At this point, I started genuinely feeling like very uncomfortable. But at the same time, I'm going to just say that I was living on an island by myself for over a year researching this stuff. And I had a couple friends that I rarely ever met. So I really had no interaction. Even when I went to a cafe or I went out, I never really talked to anybody. I'm a keep to myself sort of person. So, did I think he was full of it at the moment? Like I don't know. I thought he was maybe a little bit off or something, but he really seemed so nice and like so straightforward that it was kind of it made me feel like I couldn't like place him. I couldn't figure it out. And so he said, how about tomorrow? And I thought, sure. I was thinking, okay, I'll play along. What did I think at the time? I'll tell you. I thought he was not going to show up. He was just being weird. Or maybe he came with somebody. Maybe he was going to bring somebody and they were going to try to get me into like their space group. Yeah. Or he was going to show up with like some imaginary friend and be like, he's sitting here next to me. So those were my thoughts. But at the same time I was thinking, I'm bored. I'm getting out of here. So, there's what's to lose. But I was like, okay, sure. How about tomorrow here at noon? Because, my mind is like, okay, I'm definitely not going to be like, okay, let's meet outside in the middle of the night. It's some crazy location. That's not going to happen. But so I was like, okay, how about here at noon? And he says, okay, sure. I was like, okay. There's a pause. He gets up, he turns around, and he walks away. And sort of like my brain is processing like, what? That was so strange. This guy is weird. Is it funny though? I don't know what his thing was at the time. I was just kind of, this stuff doesn't happen all the time, right? Or maybe it does to you. I don't know. No, but it doesn't happen all the time. Or it doesn't happen. Nobody does that. So I was kind of playing along. I mean, it's an island and people, stay out in the sun too long sometimes. I don't know. Okay, so this next part, you're going to have to, I guess, just listen to and, decide for yourself what you want to think. I can tell you before I go into this that I was going to say this is going to be the last episode I do of this podcast that's going to be sort of weird. That isn't that's talking about technology and things that are going on in our galaxy and a lot of really detailed information. However, I realized this episode is going to be like maybe in two parts. So there's this last part, and then there's the part that we actually meet, or after we not when there's the part that when we meet up the second time. So that's going to be equally mind bending or difficult to believe, I guess, for most people. Okay, so the next day I go back to the cafe again, not too far from where I live, and I sit same spot. I'm looking out towards the ocean, and I get a tap on my right shoulder, and from here on, I'm gonna call them Jim and Bob. Just like these names. So I get a tap on my shoulder, and I look, and it's Jim, and Jim's like, "Hey, S, how you doing? Good to see you again." And I'm like, "Hey, Jim, good to see you again." And he turns and he's like, "This is my friend Bob." And I was like, "Hey, Bob, it's nice to meet you." And Bob just looks straight at me, doesn't say anything, and then they go and sit down. They sit down in front of me. Jim sits to the left, and Bob sits to the right. And so we sit down, and there's a brief moment where nobody says anything. It's like this kind of creepy silence moment. And so I'm like, "So, what's up?" And I hear, "Hi, S. It's nice to meet you." My instant reaction was almost jump out of my chair because somebody is standing behind me saying something into my ear. So I almost jump up and I turn around and I look and nobody is there. And so I look back and they're both looking at me. And my literal reaction was I ran my hands through my hair. I put my arms on my shoulders and like checked my back because I thought like somebody put some little speaker on me or something because it was so much there. Like it was so there that I can't explain it any other way. And there was a moment where I'm looking at them and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I hear, and I'm going to say this, all right, from here on out, the conversation between Bob and myself is only in the mind. There was no from him, and it was strictly in my mind, okay? So I'm just saying this now. So I hear, my name is whatever his name is. And I like the hair stands up on my arms. I instantly get flush, hot. That feeling when it's just like whoosh. I don't know how to explain the feeling well enough. But I was just thinking like, I don't know what's going on right now. And I hear, again, it's okay. Take your time. There's no rush. I can tell you that I'm about to cry. I don't know how to explain the feeling or how I was feeling at the time, because it's just so overwhelming. I don't know if it was like that happened or that I was realizing this was real or whatever. I just got super dizzy. I felt like I was going to pass out. I I started sweating. I just, I don't know, man. I was literally about to freak out, and I don't freak out. I just, those things don't, like, things don't bother me. But that was, I don't know, maybe it was that I had been studying it and I put all this money and energy into it, and then all of a sudden this, and I don't know, like, I don't know how to comprehend the situation correctly. So I calmed down and I looked at him and I thought something. Like, for some reason, I thought that it was like, I'm going to, test him, and like, I'm going to, you know, communicate with him through my mind. And as I did that and I looked at him, Jim looks at me and he says, "Hey, if you want to talk to him, you have to use your voice because you don't know how to do that right now." And I was thinking, like, how did you know what I was doing or what I was trying to do? And so I said, okay. Um, my first question was, "Can you read my mind?" And I know that sounds like the stupidest first question in this situation, but I I don't know. That's like literally the first thing that I thought of, because I don't know. I got some weird thoughts, and again, remember, I'm telling you, like, I'm hearing this in my mind, and he says to me, um, "No." Hold on, I'm just trying to recall this as I'm telling you. He says, "No, but if you learn how to do this, um, you can communicate with pictures, ideas, and thoughts." And that was not what I was expecting, right? That was not the response I was expecting. And I probably, just based on freaking out in this moment, my next question was, "Are you extraterrestrial?" I know, probably not the best things to ask in the beginning, but and he replied, uh, "It if you consider an extraterrestrial being someone that was not born on this earth, then yes, I am." Yeah, that's a good one, right? There's a lot of conversations in the future we will have that can explain that in much more detail. So, and my third and final question was, okay, what comes next? And he asks if I'm interested in pursuing this further. And I said, yes, absolutely. And he said, okay, Jim will set up another meeting and we can go from there. And just so you know, there is nothing to worry about. We have been doing this for a very long time. So with that, our meeting ended. They both got up and walked away. And I totally forgot to mention something. I'm sorry if this takes away from the end of that story, but I'm not going to say it. Yeah. So they left, and before they left, actually, Jim gave me his phone number and asked me, or told me that if I have any questions, to message him, and that when I'm ready, if I'm ready, we can meet again and go from there. And so they left, and I honestly sat there. I don't know how long, 45 minutes, 2 hours, I can't remember, just thinking about all the ways that this could be 100% bullshit. I I looked around under the table, under the chair, in my shirt, in my hair, behind my ears. Um, I I was looking at people like strange, like there, because there were some people that were in the cafe working, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, "You guys in on this? Y'all are fucking messing with me." I mean, I know what I heard, and I know the way that I heard it, and we all have a voice. I mean, we don't all have a voice, but most people have a voice in the back of their mind, right? That's like, S, you shouldn't do this, or that's bad, that kind of voice. But that voice is like, it's you. It's you, and it's like a dream voice where it's not present. It's not there. This is a voice that is right there. It's like someone's talking to you, like I'm talking to you now. Uh, I I've gotten used to it, obviously, after a while, but it never that experience. When you have a serious experience or something that's so traumatic, or just so it's burnt into your brain. Like I'm telling you the story, and the hairs on my arms are standing up at times because it's just so overwhelming. So, yeah, um, crazy. What a crazy, crazy, crazy thing it was. Now, obviously, it's still an incredible experience, and as I mentioned in a video earlier, it isn't the easiest thing in the world to do for so many reasons. Like, it changed my life. It changed the direction of my life. It changed the things that I thought and studied. It just this is this is the real reason. One of the reasons why I decided that I have to like talk about this, because it changed my direction in life, and some of it, I'll say, some of it not in a positive way, but most of it in a positive way. Like it changed the things, the amount of energy that I wanted to spend studying and learning about everything that I could. So there's so much to it, and it's incredibly enlightening, but also extremely difficult at the same time. Like this isn't something that everybody wants to do. As much as you think you want to have these experiences, and I hear people talking about it all the time. They're like, "Oh, I would love to do this, and I want to know." You say that, like you say that, but you don't know what you're getting yourself into until you're in that situation. So not that it's been a negative experience. It has been a positive experience, but I can just I'll sort of end on this, and then we'll go into the next one after this, another time. But I've been alone. I mean, yeah, I've seemed to become a hermit a bit. I go out, I have employees, um, but outside of that, it's just this is sort of all encompassing in a way, and it doesn't really assist you in developing personal relationships. So, you give and you get, or yeah, you get and you get. I guess something like that. Um, yeah. So, anyways, that's going to be the end of this one. I actually had to stop a while back because I had food arrive, and then I ate too quickly because I didn't eat all day long, and then I fell asleep into a food coma for a while. But so there's going to be really one more episode, this next one, that is sort of trippy for anybody who is new to this experience and listening to this and trying to figure out whether or not I'm full of shit. So this next one is going to be kind of equally uh, a bit crazy, if you want to call it crazy. But then after that, I promise it's going to become really logical and sensible, and things are just going to make a lot more sense, because that's really the takeaway from all of this, is that you'll realize that what is going on is not just, I want to say out of this world. It is out of this world, but it's not so crazy like movies where there's just this wild, insane kind of things. I mean, some of it, I mean, it is and it is and it isn't, right? But the majority of everything is completely logical, and it really explains a lot of things. If you have any knowledge in this, if you've studied Egyptology or the UFO experience or anything related to this, all of those answers, not all of them, but the majority of the things that you know and you've heard about, I will explain to you. It will make sense. It will absolutely make sense, which is great, you know? But it's also at the same time like, what? Are you like, dude, it's real. That's what I think. I was like, when I tell you the next one is, you're gonna be like, what? And then you're gonna think about all the things that you heard, and you're like, no, that literally makes sense. Yeah, so it's that. Anyways, before I continue rambling on and you shoot yourself, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your time if you listen this much. And I definitely suggest you go to our website. It is www.swampgas.info, and click on the resource sections. Like I mentioned before, we are uploading information that really will point you in a great direction as to what is going on, so you'll understand this even more. We don't post everything because, you know, some stuff that I'll see is like they're right on, but then they go into this other crazy place where it's like, yeah, you know, I don't want to chop the video, and then I can't upload my own stuff. I want to upload links from people. So I'm only uploading the things that are just right on. And again, like I mentioned in the sort of disclaimer on that, you know, I don't know those people. What I do know is what they're describing is what we've talked about or experienced or have knowledge in. So that's why I kind of consider them credible. And you know, not other people, but again, we're still uploading stuff. So not everything that is in, you know, that's out there is up there. This takes time because we have to go through it. Like, I'm personally spending time going back through the links and the videos and looking at it and watching the whole thing again to make sure that there's something that isn't just so outlandish. And I don't want to. I'm trying not to miss any of that stuff, because I don't want people to be watching that and then, you know, start thinking that crop circles are real because aliens are landing in the cornfields in Nebraska. Anyways, thanks again for listening. Have a good day, and I appreciate it.